we can go right ahead and talk about the Lakers beating the Pelicans in the play-in matchup. So going into the game, I wasn't really expecting the Lakers to actually try and win, but it's a good thing that they did. And they ended up playing like 100%, like how they usually would when going up against a team like that. And the game was very, very interesting because it started out with the Pelicans winning by 10 plus. Then the Lakers started to rally and they were up by 20 at one point. Then out of nowhere, the Pelicans just decided to make a comeback behind Zion Williamson's ridiculous 40 points. Like, Zion went off against the Lakers, and it's almost unfortunate how the game ended if you're a Pelicans fan, because Zion, after dropping 40 and 11, ended up needing to go to the locker room in the final minutes of the game, thus preventing him from being able to help his team seal that comeback win for the Pelicans. And obviously, as a Laker fan, I'm like, thank the Lord, because I won't even lie to you. Well, not really a Laker fan. I'm more like a LeBron fan. Like, as a LeBron fan, thank the Lord that ended up happening. Unfortunate as it is, like, I'm not saying that I'm happy that he's injured. I'm just saying that it was fortunate for them, because if Zion were to play in those final minutes, maybe the results of this game would have been a little bit different. But LeBron, he dropped 23. He led his team in scoring, but he did not have a very good night in terms of efficiency. He was 1 rebound and 1 assist away from a triple-double, but he shot 6 of 20 from the field and 1 for 5 from 3, which is a little bit underwhelming for LeBron. I understand that he is the oldest player in the NBA, but that is, like, again, it's really underwhelming how inefficient he was in this play-in matchup. He's usually He's usually much more efficient in the games that really matter, and he usually plays a lot better in crunch time situations, but he didn't really do that in this game. So the door was wide open for the Pelicans to seal that comeback win. But thankfully, for the first time in like what feels like forever, the Lakers teammates and LeBron's teammates actually showed up. D'Angelo Russell ended the game with 21 points, 7 of 14 from the field. Very, very efficient from him. And Anthony Davis ended the game 6 of 16, a little bit less efficient, but he shot 8 of 10 from the line and also made both of the game-sealing free throws against his former team. So, let's see, just looking at the rest of the scorers, Austin Reeves ended the game with 16 points, 5 for 11. Roy Hachimura ended the game 5 of 6 for 13 points. And that was basically it in terms of all the important scoring. One thing that I think should be addressed was how they're sort of underutilizing Spencer Dinwiddie. I mean, he only played 5 minutes in this game for some reason, but in those 5 minutes, he ended up going 0 for 3 from the field. So it might have been for the best that he wasn't playing that much, but as a Nets fan and seeing this former Nets player score significantly less than what he needed to score on the Brooklyn Nets is a little bit disappointing, because how do you go from a 20 point per game scorer to just barely being able to drop 2 points? It's a little bit concerning for the Lakers. And like it was hyped up that this move in free agency, like not in free agency, but like this signing after a few in the middle of the regular season was like, oh, this is a good thing. He's a great scorer, but he's not been providing it as much. Now, on the Pelicans side, while LeBron didn't really play well, I can't really say that the rest of the other players on the Pelicans played well either. CJ McCollum ended the game with only 9 points. And let's see, he shot I believe it was, 1 for 9 from the field and 1 for 9 from 3 and 4 for 15 from the field. Jonas Valanciunas also didn't play well in this matchup, scoring only 4 points and 1 for 7 from the field. Brandon Ingram also didn't play well in this matchup, scoring just 11 points and 4 of 12 from the field. And I said previously on the podcast that this game was going to be determined on how good Brandon Ingram was going to play. And for the most part, that's somewhat held up, because if Brandon Ingram would have shot the ball just a little bit better, they would have been in a better position to win. So, obviously, this loss for the Pelicans, it's a little bit disappointing, but it's not like their season is over, because they still have a chance to beat the Kings in the next matchup, so that way they could still keep their playoff hopes alive and actually play a much easier opponent in OKC as the 8th seed, and OKC is the 1st seed. But after the game, with Zion Williamson going down with an injury, now their path to the playoffs is a little bit more uncertain. That is a huge wild card factor to take into account with this game. The fact that Zion had to leave the game due to an apparent injury. Now, maybe he gets better, maybe he doesn't, but it's still very concerning if you are a Pelicans fan going into this next game against the Sacramento Kings, especially the Kings, because they have the matchups perfect to be able to beat you if you're the Pelicans. Now, since the Lakers won, they don't have to play another play-in game. They are going to match up against the Denver Nuggets in the first round. And somebody told me that, it's better to get the Denver Nuggets out of the way now than to meet them later in the postseason when they have momentum. And that makes a lot of sense. However, I was sort of saying to avoid them entirely in the hopes that some other team would beat them, and then they'd be able to beat that team that beat them. Similar to how in 2020 the Lakers didn't end up playing the Clippers because the Nuggets ended up beating the Clippers in the second round, and thus allowing them to sort of play a little bit of an easier matchup. At the time, it was considered an easier matchup than playing the Clippers, because back then, the Battle of LA, that was supposed to be this big epic thing that was going to happen in the playoffs, yet we never ever have gotten it. Literally, the hype on the Battle of LA, that was probably the most hyped up thing that the NBA has done, and it flopped horrendously. It flopped even more than the hype was, if that makes sense. Because, we've never seen the Clippers and the Lakers match up against each other in the playoffs, in the play-in, in any type of postseason matchup. We have not seen it since Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have joined the Clippers. And it's really underwhelming. The Battle of LA, that's a really big deal. And it would have definitely attracted a lot of attention had that been the Western Conference Finals matchup at the time. But regardless, we don't get a Battle of LA. We get a rematch between the Western Conference Finals. So whoever wins this matchup, I believe, has the best chance of making the Western Conference Finals. So if the Lakers win, I think they're going to go all the way to the Western Conference Finals at least. The Nuggets win, they're also going to go all the way to the Western Conference Finals at least. So it's going to be a very highly anticipated game, watching them both match up against each other again, given how the Nuggets have swept them in the previous year. Maybe the Lakers can tack on one game, but they are ready, at least according to Darvin Ham. Darvin Ham, in the locker room, he said, now our record is 0-0, and we want all the smoke. So hopefully the Lakers are better prepared for the matchup against Jokic and Jamal Murray. I will say, however, that last matchup that they played against Jokic and Murray and the Nuggets, that was really ridiculous because there were times where the Lakers played some of the best defense imaginable, but Jokic just threw up the ball and it went in, or Jamal Murray would throw up the ball and it went in. And it's just like you can't really ask for anything more from the Lakers because they were making some of the craziest, most difficult shots that you could ever imagine. Like, think of Kobe Bryant difficult type shots. And Kobe shot every single kind of fadeaway you could think of in the book. He shot it double clutch fadeaway. He shot a regular fadeaway. He shot a fadeaway in front of two people. He shot a fadeaway over a center. He shot a fadeaway. He was the best difficult shots maker that the NBA has ever seen. And that was literally what Jokic and Jamal Murray were doing in that entire matchup. So are they going to be lucky again and hit all of those shots? Because it did seem like those shots were incredibly lucky because they were just throwing the ball up at that point. Like, it looked like they were just throwing the ball up, praying to God that it would go in, and it would go in. And it's really like those kind of shots demoralize a team and could prevent them from having the confidence to make a run or to make the series a bit more competitive. Because when you're hitting those type of shots, it's like, what do you do? Like, you're playing the proper defense, you're playing the right defense that you can, but it ultimately ends up with the other team still scoring. So it's like, Jesus, like, what? At least that's sort of the feeling that I got when I saw Jokic throw the ball up, because it's like, how on earth is he hitting this ridiculous shot? Like, it was over Anthony Davis's face, fading away, like, turning around, and it was ridiculous, the shots that they were making. But now, for the Pelicans, like I mentioned previously, they still have a shot of making it to the playoffs, but their chances are sort of a little bit lower because Zion Williamson's not going to be playing in this matchup, and it's going to be down to the teammates. It's going to be down to CJ McCollum, and it's going to be down to Brandon Ingram, because they definitely can beat the Kings. Like, if all those players that I mentioned played well, they definitely can beat the Kings. But with that, that's basically all I wanted to cover for this segment, and that's really all that you guys needed to know and to look forward to in this next matchup. So we are out of time for the first segment, and I will go ahead and pivot to the second segment where I talk about the Warriors matching up against the Kings right after this break, which is going to be a little bit of a longer than normal break because I unfortunately do have to use the bathroom. So I will be right back with you guys after this break.